Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivanadari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivanadari Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanacharin Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivanadari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Gurudev. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna. This morning we're going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 8, verses 9 and 10. Would someone, some Sanskrit scholar over there, be willing to do the Sanskrit so I don't completely mess it up? Would someone be willing to do that? Can you give up? Somebody have a microphone? Okay. Anyone. Just anyone but me.
Jayasuram bhavamimam tvamatmanah samam manodhatsvana santi vidvishah rute ajitadatman utpathe stitat tadhihi anantasya mahat samarhanam. Jayasuram bhavamimam tvamatmanah samam manodhatsvana santi vidvishah rute ajitadatmana utpathe stitat tadhihi anantasya mahat samarhanam. Jayasuram bhavamimam tvamatmanah samam manodhatsvana santi vidvishah rute ajitadatmana utpathe stitat tadhihi anantasya mahat samarhanam.
Ladies? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Okay, word for word. Jahi, just give up. Asram, demoniac. Bhavam, tendency. Imam, this. Twam, you. My dear Father. Atmanaha, of yourself. Samam, equal. Manaha, the mind. Datsva, make. Na, not. Santi, are. Vidvashaha, enemies. Vite, accept. Ajitat, uncontrolled. Atmanaha, the mind. Utpate, on the mistaken path of undesirable tendencies. Stitat, being situated. Tati, that mentality. He, indeed. Anantasya, of the unlimited Lord. Mahat, the best. Samarhanam, method of worship. So I'll read both translations and both purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Prahlad Maharaj continued, My dear Father, please give up your demoniac mentality. Do not discriminate in your heart between enemies and friends. Make your mind equipoised toward everyone. Except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world. When one sees everyone on the platform of equality, one then comes to the position of worshiping the Lord perfectly. Purport. Unless one is able to fix the mind at the lotus feet of the Lord, the mind is impossible to control, as Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita 6:34. Kanchalam hi manaha Krishna pramati balavad dirdam tasyaham nigraham manye vayor iva sudushkaram. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it seems to me is more difficult than controlling the wind. The only bona fide process for controlling the mind is to fix the mind by service to the Lord. We create enemies and friends according to the dictation of the mind, but actually there are no enemies and friends. Pandita sama darshinaha, sama sarveshu bhuteshu, mad bhaktim labhate param. To understand this is the preliminary condition for entering into the kingdom of devotional service. Text 10, translation. In former times there were many fools like you who did not conquer the 6 enemies that steal away the wealth of the body. These fools were very proud, thinking, I have conquered all enemies in all the 10 directions. But if a person is victorious over the 6 enemies and is equipoised toward all living entities, for him there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance. Purport. In this material world, everyone thinks that he has conquered his enemies, not understanding that his enemies are his uncontrolled mind and 5 senses. Manaha sastan indriyani, prakriti stani karshati. In this material world, everyone has become a servant of the senses. Originally, everyone is a servant of Krishna, but in ignorance one forgets this, and thus one is engaged in the service of Maya through lusty desires, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy. Everyone is actually dependent on the reactions of material laws. But still one thinks himself independent and thinks that he has conquered all directions. In conclusion, one who thinks that he has many enemies is an ignorant man, whereas one who is in Krishna consciousness knows that there are no enemies but those within oneself, the uncontrolled mind and senses. Om Jnanatimrandasya Gena Gena Shalakaya Chakshur Ummalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Namano Bistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Lalita Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. I please request everyone who is elder than me in age and more knowledgeable in Scripture, please bless me that I may say something relevant and applicable in our lives so that we may come closer to serving Krishna in love. So I chose these two verses because they actually represent something really, some primary understanding which helps us in our Krishna consciousness. We're told we're not this body and we're not this mind. However, we still grapple with that. We do have a mind, we do have senses, we do have a body. And somehow we have to work within the limitations of the body, the mind, and the senses. We need to manage them. Now, interestingly, Prahlad's talking to his father and asking him to give up his demoniac mentality, which in this case represents seeing enemies. Jai Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra. Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Jai Shri Shri Gauri Thai. See the simple love of a child. Not complicated. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. As adults, sometimes our minds and our lives become very complicated. And you can see in Hiranyakashi's life, in order for him to control, he had so many complicated arrangements. First of all, he had to perform all these great austerities for so long. And then he got all this power, and he got this benediction. And then he became very political and complicated. You have to manage and arrange all these extra complicated things. And when you're so busy managing all those things, of course, you're not really looking inside. And you're just looking outside and seeing anybody who doesn't bow to me or agree with me is my enemy. Now here, Prahlad, on the other hand, is only 5 years old. He has a lot of qualities that are kind of missing in his father. Qualities such as simplicity, no duplicity, simplicity. He has an open heart. He doesn't see enemies. Kids don't know how to see enemies. They might be afraid of somebody, or they might feel somebody's hurting them, but they don't see enemies. They don't have enemy images unless that's infused in them by the adults around them. They don't know what enemy means. They're simple. So Prahlad was very simple, and he just said, give up your enemy mentality. It's not really serving you. And then he says, okay, I'm going to read it so I get it right. Except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world. And I specifically said that because oftentimes we think our mind is our enemy. But here is a clear distinction. Except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there are no enemies, except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind. So I'm going to read just 2 texts from Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 6, text 5 and 6. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. So here is the key point. It's not that our mind is the enemy. It's that the mind is not the leader of our life unless we give it full rein to lead us. Our mind is simply I'd like to call it a monitor on a computer. It only plays what has been fed into it from the past, from past lives, from our childhood. It only shows out images and information that has been fed into it. It's not alive in and of itself. Now, we all have an operating system, which I use the word operating system for our false ego, because it really is an operating system. It helps us to operate in this life. And we definitely need some software programming. Otherwise, not knowing who we are, we wouldn't be able to function at all if we didn't have some operating system. So just like a computer has software programming, if we don't know the program of the computer, we're not going to be able to really manage the computer very well. It's always going to be on default mode, very limited. It could be very frustrating if we want to do something and we don't know how to do it, if it's just on default, that we don't even know how to push the option buttons. Sometimes that's how it is for us in regards to our own operating system. And so what shows up on the screen of our mind is all the things that have just been fed into it from the past. And then we try to fight our mind. how can we manage, I like to use the word manage because control is can be a little violent. How can we manage our mind? What do the best managers do when they're managing different elements? What does it say in Bhagavad Gita? We need to understand the field of activities. We need to understand how we do operate. We need to understand that. And then we have a chance of managing it. We have a chance of finding the option buttons and then managing it. That's our job. That's what it says here in Bhagavad Gita. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. It says it right there. How do we make the mind our friend? Well, first of all, we don't let it lead because it's only leading from past experience. It doesn't really know except what it knows from the past experience. Now, how much we know from our past experience is very tiny in the scope of all that there is to know. And of course, Krishna, the unknowable, our knowledge is very little. So, instead of allowing our mind to run the show, we really need to understand how our mind works and then start to be the person that inputs the information into the mind. So, generally, it's hard to put the absolute truth on top of false ego mechanisms because the false ego is false and you can't put truth on top of false. It won't stick. So we need to understand what are the false things that the false ego is speaking through the mind. And we need the power of discernment. So a lot of times the word that's used in the scriptures is discrimination. I like the word discernment because we really need to discern, is this the truth or is this just something I've been believing for so long that I think it's the truth? So as we learn to discern what's the ego mechanism, what is the ego voice in the mind, we can start to ask the mind questions. My dear mind, I hear you. I hear what you're proposing. And just like Maya Devi proposed to Haridas Thakur, we can say, my dear mind, that's an interesting proposal. That's one option. However, right now I really want to be intentional and focus on creating devotional mentality. So let me do my service and we'll maybe talk about that later. And then as we think about what the mind proposed, with discernment, we can begin to ask the mind questions. This is another quality of children. Curiosity. Curiosity. When we're adults, sometimes we think we know. Hiranyakashipu thought he knew everything. Sometimes knowing gets in the way of our growing. If we know and we think we know, we're not going to be open to learning or hearing from Krishna in our heart. We're going to already just try to figure it out with the information that we have from the past, from what we know, and those combinations are very limited. So we can ask the mind to help us. My dear mind, I'd like to practice Not judging others as friends and enemies. My dear mind, I'd like to start practicing not seeing others as friends and enemies. Do you have any ideas, my dear mind, how I might do that? In this way, we are guiding the mind what information we want it to give us. We're not just taking the information it's giving us because it's only giving us what it knows from past experiences. My dear mind, how might I start to do that? And you'd be surprised because your mind really does want to help you. It just gets confused as to who the master is. And it has taken on the operating system, the software programming, thinking that's its master. And it doesn't realize there's a soul inside that's really the master. But it doesn't mind serving the soul. It's okay with serving the soul, especially when we treat the mind as a friend. If we treat the mind as an enemy, what might the mind become? If you treat somebody here as an enemy, how might they feel about that and what might they do? If you start beating someone or criticizing someone or pushing someone away or denigrating someone, how might they respond? I'd like a couple of responses from over here. They might retaliate. And then what do we have to do? Someone retaliates. Usually we need to defend. Now you notice Haridas Thakur didn't argue with Maya Devi because that would have been a distraction. She would have retaliated, and then he would have had to answer that, and then she would have answered him back, and then he would have had to answer her back, and he would have been distracted. When we argue with our mind and fight our mind as if it's an enemy, it takes a lot of time and energy, and it's really a distraction from the truth. The mind is not our enemy, but it's confused, and we're confused sometimes as to who we really are. We think sometimes that our false ego is us. We identify with our false ego, so we're confused. So we need to really get straight and really get clear, who am I separate from these false ego mechanisms? Who am I? I mean, we say, I'm part and parcel of Krishna. I'm a Jiva Tattva. We say that, but what are we identifying with? Are we identifying with that, or are we identifying with the operating systems? So this is the science of self-realization, to discern the difference between the operating systems and us. And if we can't get to that discernment, we're going to be confused. We're going to be acting in ways which may be self-sabotaging. So, I just want to say one thing about the second verse. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance. Yeah. So, what would it be like if we could really pray, let me see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, think no evil? What would that be like? What if we just saw everything as coming to us as a gift from Krishna? Now that doesn't mean that we're a doormat. It just means that we can see the truth, and even if someone is acting in ways like they're treating us like an enemy, we don't have to treat them back like an enemy. We can see, wow, that's the understanding that they have. That's as far as they've come in their development. They're seeing me as an enemy. They're afraid of me. Hiranyakashipu was afraid of Prahlad, this big, powerful demon. The demigods and everyone on earth shook. But because Prahlad wasn't afraid of him, he was afraid of Prahlad. And he wanted to try to kill him, and when he couldn't, and then he became more fearful. Fear and ignorance come from insecurity. Insecurity comes from not being grounded in the truth. When we know who we really are, and we know that Krishna is our ever well-wisher, our best friend, and that he's the proprietor and he's the controller, when we know that, then there's no fear. So how can we day by day discern, when am I believing that? And when am I not believing that? And if I'm not believing that, what am I believing instead? Because when we find out what we're believing instead of the absolute truth, that is a real key to what our operating system is telling us. And this takes discernment. Sometimes we think we don't have time to introspect and discern. I would ask, why are we here in Krishna consciousness? Krishna didn't need Arjuna to kill all those soldiers, and that was a pretty big feat. And he didn't need Arjuna to do that. Certainly he doesn't need us to do whatever we're doing. He's giving us service so that we can practice. He's giving us something, but he doesn't need us to do that. The service sometimes helps us to engage our mind as we introspect little by little, as we digest and discern little by little, what am I believing and why can't I believe the absolute truth? Why can't I apply that in this situation? Little by little by little, it takes time, and in the meantime, he gives us services to do so our operating system doesn't drive us crazy. However, he doesn't need our services. He wants us to deepen our understanding. And that takes a little time for introspection. And that's why we're here in Krishna consciousness. We're here to purify. And that takes some attention and some courage. It takes some courage to look at and pull apart the lies that we've been believing in without shaming ourselves for being somewhat foolish. How can we discern the truth without shaming ourselves for our own ignorance? When we can say, oh, I have been ignorant, but that's not who I really am. We can say that without shame. And then we can transform. However, if we take and shame ourselves, then that's more ignorance. That doesn't help us to see the truth. Krishna does not want to hurt us or punish us. He just simply wants to bring us back to God, to him. He misses us. You've all read Bhagavatam Rita. He loves us. Karma is not his punishment. Karma is our ignorance that we're not getting the message, so we keep repeating the same lessons. It's us that perpetuates karma. He's not giving us karma. He's giving us feedback. And when we don't get the feedback and we don't get the listen, we get the lesson again and again and again until we get it. That's his kindness. He gives us free will, and he gives us all the time we need to digest and understand who we really are day by day, moment by moment, so that we can serve in love. And the last part here, it says, when one sees everyone on the platform of equality, then one comes to the position of worshiping the Lord perfectly. So wherever we're not seeing equality, we can ask ourselves, what's going on? Why can't I see this as coming from Krishna? So, there's a little time for some questions, discussion, corrections, thoughts. I do like discussion. Please.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, for your wonderful insight and explaining the mechanism of all this. As you said, that our operating system is false ego in the conditioned state, and we very strongly identify with it. And the soul, it is very difficult. For the liberated soul, this acting on the real platform is like removing shirt from the body. But for the conditioned soul, it is like kavach, like the Karna had the kavach. Removing it is not so easy. It has to be cut only, and leads to lot of bleeding, profuse bleeding and pain. So one would rather prefer not that not to happen. So likewise, we very strongly identify with the ignorance and the false ego, and in practical life we fail. In the presence of devotees, it may be okay. We may appear to be on the soul platform, but when we are in our own personal life, then we by default act on that ignorance, which is very thick covering on the soul, as if that is only myself. So how do we practically get out of it?
The easiest method is little piece by little piece. We use the events of our life to become aware. Oh, I'm getting angry. What's going on? Am I tired? Am I stressed? Do I have a need that I'm expecting this person to fulfill for me and they're not fulfilling it? Is it from something from the past? Because a lot of times people in the present trigger a past memory that we have not even dealt with, that we've pushed down and suppressed. So I'll just give a quick example. Say, our father or mother yelled at us a lot or hurt us. If we have an authority who also yells, we may have an authority issue with that person because we weren't able to deal with that trauma when we were young, and we kind of kept it tight inside, and even sometimes we keep it in, it's even stored in our body, like the tension stays in our body. So the body has a memory. Did you ever hear of body memory? The body has memory. Even little children, they can remember things not from their head, but from their sense, their intuition. So it just takes like one step at a time. And when you say your personal life, if we took every aspect of our life, our personal life, our services in the temple, our interactions with others, if we took all of these circumstances as like our devotional practice, then we can use the circumstances of our life to open up our understanding of ourselves. We have an argument with someone, we fight with someone. We can be curious. Why was I so angry with them? What was I defending? What was I feeling? What was I expecting from them that they didn't give me? Where did that expectation come from? If we were an only child and we got everything we wanted, and then people start saying no to us, we might get angry. It's like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to get everything I want. That's how I was brought up, why aren't you giving me what I want? If we never had anything when we were young, if we were poor, we might have a scarcity mentality and hold on to every little thing and be attached because we're afraid we're not going to have enough because we didn't have enough. So these mechanisms are deep, so it just takes one day at a time, every day, just discerning. Why am I so angry? Wow, what is that about? Being curious rather than judging is like, what is wrong with me? I'm angry. I've been in the movement for 27 years and now I'm angry. What's wrong with me? Instead of beating ourselves up, it's like, why am I so angry? What is that about? Being curious. And when you pray to Krishna and say, Krishna, help me to understand, why am I angry? Help me to get to the root of this. Krishna will help you. He wants to help you. You have to ask for his help. Did that help at all?
Yes, but still some more query. Like this kind of dialogue, whatever you call it, a self-talk or self-dialogue with oneself requires something like being in the mode of goodness. Then one can talk. Otherwise, being in the lower mode of passion and ignorance, what I understand, one is requested or suggested to approach some superior in whom he has faith, and then he helps up to open up. Somebody can apply tilak by himself without mirror, but most others need mirror to see exactly to make it correct. Otherwise, it may go anywhere, haywire. So,
it could require some support from outsiders. It could require that kind of a sangha, and it's not that every superior necessarily exactly is the same in their understanding also. And so they can only help us as much as they know to help. So again, Krishna is in our heart. I just want to say that. He is in our heart for knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. He's there to help us. Really, when we pray to Krishna, guide me to someone, help me to find someone who can help me, he can do that too. Like really, having that connection with Krishna is really special. He's there 24/7. Krishna, I'm grappling with this. Help me. Don't deny that asset that we have in our own heart. He's there to help us. Now, generally, it is a little painful to unpeel the layers of the false ego because we do identify with them so much. We think this is me. When you say, oh, your class was too intellectual, or I couldn't relate to your class. And I could get hurt and say, oh, they don't like me, they don't like my class. Or I could be curious, oh, what part was intellectual? What part, didn't you understand? Or what part did you think wasn't relevant? That would be helpful for me and helpful for the other person. But we can't usually say that if we're insecure, if we don't have a security inside of us. So the habits of the false ego, which you can call anartas, they're like weeds. Generally what we do when we want to get rid of weeds really fast, we just cut off the top. Looks nice. But then we keep wondering, why do they keep growing back? Well, we haven't gotten to the root of the issue. So getting to the root does take a little more time. I did speak about a couple principles in some of the class. Being truthful in our everyday dealings. Just being truthful in our everyday dealings with others. In little things like, I'm going to be there at 3 o'clock, and then if I'm going to be late, I'm going to text you, I'll be 5 minutes late. Or if I have to cancel, I'm going to text you and say, hey, something came up. Can we do it another day? That's being truthful in an integrity. If we can't do that in the little things in our life, how are we going to be truthful about our own ecosystems? How are we going to be truthful to our own vows? If we can't lift a lightweight kartals, how are we going to lift 10, 15, 20 pounds? We're not going to be able to do it. So we need to start exercising our spiritual muscles, exercising our muscles of discernment, being curious, exercising our muscles of truthfulness, exercising our muscles of prayerfulness. We just need to start exercising our muscles little by little by little. It doesn't happen overnight. Krishna gives us a lifetime to do it because it takes time. There's no quick fix. There's no quick fix, and that's the problem. In the material world is driven by quick fix. The material world is all about quick fix. I'm going to do this, and that's going to be better. But then there's repercussions on this side. Now I'm going to go do this, and we're just swinging back and forth in duality, trying to fix this side, now bring it over here, now bring it over here. We got to come into the middle and into the integration. There is no fix. There's no problem. We are part and parcel of Krishna. We are. And this material world is to teach us things. There's nothing wrong with the material world. How can I learn the lessons I've come here to learn so that I can recognize who I really am, so I can go back to where I really belong? That's the big question. But the quick fix is we can't quick fix. Even Krishna consciousness, sometimes we think, oh, I'm just going to work really hard and automatically everything's going to happen. There's no quick fix for our consciousness. It's being conscious. What is my consciousness? Being conscious, what is my obstacle? Being conscious, why am I upset? Why am I angry? And you might think it's too hard. Just like if you see a field of weeds and you want to start cultivating, you think, oh, this is too hard. Then you'll never start because you've already bought into the belief that it's too hard. And if you buy into the belief that it's too hard, why would you ever do it? But if you just say, Krishna, I'm just going to try day by day. I'm going to pull these weeds, and you just pull a little at a time. And then you don't look up every day. Don't compare yourself every day. Just pull, and then you look and you say, oh, I did 2 feet, and then you pull again, and then years later you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. It's kind of how it happens, little by little, gradually. I don't know if I answered your question. You were maybe looking for something else. Tell me what you were looking for.
I understood your point, but I want to further clarification. Like one side there are hundreds of verses saying that Krishna is ours, we are his part and parcel. We have direct connection with him. And there are hundreds of other verses on the other side saying that our connection with Krishna is really established through Guru. So Guru is the one, yasya deve para bhaktir yatha devetar. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Supreme Lord and Krishna and Guru, all the knowledge of Vedic knowledge is automatically revealed. So we approach through Guru, but now if you see many devotees, disciples of bona fide Gurus, they have some kind of inside their heart, some kind of resistance or some kind of my Guru doesn't give me time, he doesn't have time for me, I have so many things to ask, and lot of such whatever you call, not exactly, we can say complaints, but they don't speak it out. Sometimes they may not. So they have some objection towards Guru only in one sense. So then how would they be...
Say that again, they have some what towards Guru?
Objection or some kind of complaint about Guru. So how would they be able to talk to Krishna when they have not taken help of the external manifestation of Krishna properly, which is much easier than Krishna, who is like he's spiritual only and deep within the heart as Paramatma, with a surpassing Guru, or in one sense side-tracking Guru.
Right.
How would they be directly be communicating with Krishna?
Everything is situated on desire. Everything is situated on desire. So that person that you're talking about, I don't know what his or her desire is, but that desire needs to be looked at, Because if he's desiring something quick, he's desiring my guru should talk to me and just give me all the answers. If he's desiring to have Krishna consciousness in 5, 10 years, if he's impatient and he doesn't feel like he's getting what he needs, then he's not going to be able to see the gifts that he is getting. And we can't necessarily make that person see that. Everybody is an individual. We have our own individual desire. Krishna gave us free will. We get it when we're ready, willing, and anxious to get it. We need to have a little anxiousness to get it. If we just have an anxiousness to relieve ourselves of the pain of being in this material world and having this body and having this mind, and it's so painful, and just give me some pain reliever really quick, we'll get a different result than if we're like, whatever it takes, Krishna, however long it takes, I want to be in this process. Show me little by little. I'm open to hearing, help me. And if we're patient with ourselves and with the process and with others, then we can get the gifts. But if we think it's just, when I was a young devotee, I thought, Krishna, just hand it to me. You can do it. Just give me humility. You can do anything. Just hand it to me. But if Krishna were to hand it to us like that, we would take it for granted and we wouldn't even know what it was that he gave us. We wouldn't be able to value it. Prabhupada said, this is my favorite quote, what is learned easily is easy to forget. What's difficult to learn is difficult to forget. So sometimes the learning is a struggle. If you get a master's or a PhD, it's a struggle. But you've got a big gift from it. But if you just want that big gift, it's like, they should just give me a doctorate. Come on, Why don't they just give it to me? Without me doing any work. Why don't you just give me pure devotion without me doing any work? Well, I wouldn't even know what to do with it if you gave it to me because I haven't developed myself enough to even know how to utilize it. Does that make sense? It's hard. It's a struggle. It's not easy to do this process. And there's no quick fix. We need to encourage one another. That's a big thing. We need to encourage one another. We need to not judge one another and not say, what's taking you so long and why are you having difficulty and what's wrong with you and look at what you're doing. That's a distraction from our own work. But when we see somebody having difficulty, what's going on? Are you okay? What's happening? It's not easy. It takes everything in us. So if we can just encourage one another and stop judging ourselves and just be curious, Krishna may reveal to us, okay, so your guru's doesn't have enough time to give you an attention. Who might support you? Who might be able to help you? And even sometimes we may have an authority. I had an authority who helped for a while, but then didn't help. Actually created confusion. So who was it that got me out of that? That was Krishna, because I was locked in. So it's two rails. It's not just one or the other. It's two rails. And if something's shaky and something's if we're confused, we need to find a place that gives us an answer that helps us. And the answer that helps us today might not be the ultimate answer. It might be a stepping stone, because depending on where we are, we can only take so much. A baby can't digest solid food. So Krishna gives us what we can take and what we need for where we are. He knows what he's doing. It's not easy. It takes a strong desire. So we need to look, what am I desiring? Am I just trying to avoid pain? What am I desiring? Do I just want a simple life where I don't have to worry? What am I desiring? Do I really want to do the work it takes to be Krishna conscious? What am I desiring? Am I in this for the long term? This is a long distance marathon. It's not a quick sprint. It's a long distance marathon. We need to pace ourselves. We need to encourage one another. We need to be patient. And we need to just take the little steps day by day. It doesn't seem like it's anything, but we don't even acknowledge the little steps we're taking. One more example. When a little child learns how to walk, right? Just think. The child's standing and holding and shaking. The parents say, "Is that all you can do? Oh my gosh, you're so weak. Come back when you can walk." And then the child takes a step and falls. "You're so fallen. Really. Come back when you can walk." That child would feel really hurt and would cry and might not ever want to walk. It might take a lot longer for that child to walk. Instead, the parents are encouraging, "Oh, you took one step. Yay!" Do we encourage ourselves like that? I took one step. I didn't vent out in anger to somebody today. Yay! Wow, that was a success. Do we encourage ourselves like that? We're like, "Is that all you can do? Okay, great. Come back when you don't have any anger." How are we going to get to that place unless we encourage ourselves on each little step? We need to recognize the little steps we're taking and acknowledge them and, wow, celebrate. I didn't fight, if that would have been me yesterday I would have fought with this person. Today I didn't. Today I prayed. Today I said, "Krishna, help me to see what's going on inside of me." Today I took responsibility. Yay. And then we'll practice walking more. And then we'll get better at it. And then maybe we'll run. We need to acknowledge the little steps. We need to encourage ourselves and others on the little steps we're taking. Does that make sense?
Thank you very much, Mataji.
Thank you. It's time is way over.
Just one question.
One more question? Okay. I'll be available here for more questions, and I'm available during the day if anybody wants to have a private session. And after the class, I only have 6 more sets of books left. Even though it looks like there's a lot of book, only 6 of the sets are left. So go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Very grateful to you for telling about the internal development, which is slow, and one has to be attentive to that. My question is, you made the statement that actually ignorance and fear are based on insecurity, and insecurity is because of not being grounded in the truth. So actually just now we saw truth is sufficiently complex, especially Krishna, and he has lot of varieties. Now we could see the difference between the convictions of 2 people.
Yes.
Of what they have experienced in their own lives.
Yes.
And both can be correct.
Yes. Yes.
So when we interact with each other, especially you said about knowing can come in the growing.
Growing,
right?
yes. Knowing
so
can
as a brahmachari, when we study Shastra, which is
Yes.
one of the important aspect of our dharma.
Yes. Yes.
So when we have different convictions among us,
Yes.
so we have an entire set of different emphasis and convictions, and everyone is trying their own,
Yes.
and it is avoided by Krishna.
Yes.
So how do we have a positive connotation towards someone else who has a different grounding in truth?
Beautiful.
Like Sundar Shampu, for example, he has a different conviction, I have a different conviction, and we have challenge many times.
Yes. Yes.
So, and he is not going to change, neither I am going to change.
Yes.
So how do we go about it? Because Krishna loves variety also.
Right.
So what is actually be
Beautiful.
grounded in truth?
Beautiful. Beautiful question. Beautiful question. Wonderful. Like you said, truth is really big. So why can't I validate someone else's experience without invalidating mine? There's this perception somehow that if you're right, then I must be wrong. or if I'm right, there's got to be something wrong with your seeing, what you're doing, or the way you're perceiving things. We haven't expanded out enough to understand. It's like, oh, okay, that's how you see things. That's interesting. I never thought of it like that, and I don't know that I ever would think of it like that, but that's interesting. If that works for you, go for it. If that helps you in your spiritual life, go for it. Why can't we validate one another? Why do we have to argue? There might be some insecurity in there that I have to, prove that I'm right, because if you're right, then maybe I'm doubting, am I really right? Is it self-doubt that has me arguing? Is that what it is? What has me, and the discussion could be even enrich both if you discuss it in a way that it's like, wow, I never thought of it like that. Explain to me how you see it. And then be interested in their perspective. Wow, that's an interesting perspective. I don't know if I would take that on, but I can see why you believe what you believe. And then you could respect and value that person for the way they believe. I mean, you don't have to do that, but why do we have to invalidate one or the other side? It's a part of Krishna we're invalidating. He's so broad and so huge. He makes a place for everyone. There's so many planets in the spiritual world. We're not all going to the same place. So many perspectives. Even within the gopis, there's 2 camps. Come on. They don't see eye to eye, but they don't disrespect one another. They might compete, but that's different. The competition there is different. It's not because I feel insecure. It's because of the strong desire to love Krishna. And that strong desire pleases Krishna. So what is it that is it because I feel insecure or doubtful of my own thing that I have to want to invalidate you? Or is it that I can't expand my mind? Even if I can't wrap my head around, I can't say that I could wrap my head around everyone's perspective, but that doesn't mean I can't honor that they have a perspective, even if I can't understand it. If that works for you, do it. That's great. I'm glad you found something that works for you. I can't do it that way. Does that make sense? We do need help to do that because we're so used to the mentality black and white. If I'm right, if I have the truth, and you don't believe what I believe, you must be wrong. Somebody's got to be wrong here. Somebody's got to be at fault here. There's we talk about the software programming and default mechanism, right? I've got my default mechanism, and you've got your default mechanism. So it's nobody's fault. We're just on default. So we're just here to purify our consciousness. Is arguing going to help to purify my consciousness? Is it going to help me to respect you more? Or is it just going to create a battle because, we're fighting with one another? Can we peacefully and respectfully say, if that works for you, Prabhu, all the best, all the best. It doesn't work for me. Can we validate one another without arguing, even if we don't see eye to eye? We're different. We're all unique and we're all different. Validating others without invalidating ourselves. Validating ourselves without invalidating another. That takes broad-mindedness. That takes a big heart. That takes love. So that's what we can work on. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for your time, for your attention, for your questions, for your interest, for your being in devotional service, for however long you've been in devotional service. It's glorious. It's a noble path, and things that are noble and things that are priceless take time. They're not cheap. They take time. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Prahlad Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna. We thank Her Grace Sukhavaha Mataji. She has been giving her. We thank Her Grace Sukhavaha Mataji. She has been giving her valuable association for the past 7 days. Individually, whoever wanted to approach her, she was quite approachable. Whoever wanted to meet her, and collectively she gave 3 seminars, and then a lot of 3 Bhagavatam classes where we could get her association. Now that her Vani association won't be there, she is giving her association through books also. If somebody wants to take them and read and get her association, continue getting her association, they can access to these books also. And also see her mood in giving.
What's that? Go ahead.
Yeah, her mood in giving this knowledge is that if we bump into certain difficulties, we don't have to undergo the same difficulties which she went, so that we can easily maneuver and handle those situations. That she has been telling, that she gave us the sweet rice without having us to undergo the difficulties to prepare the sweet rice. So let's take advantage of her.
But you will have to
Vani.
learn the art of making your own sweet rice. Eventually.
Yeah. One more contribution which I feel very touched by is generally, I mean, Mataji told about how Haridas Thakur, when Maya Devi comes, he initiated her from Ram Bhakt to Krishna Bhakt, actually. She made her. Similarly, Mataji, psychology is considered like a Maya in our in society. So she initiated that psychology and integrated that into Krishna consciousness and made the psychology into Krishna's devotee. So I felt that it was a great contribution, that we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of our Krishna consciousness in a much better way. Thank you very much, Mataji.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I just have 4 sets of the books left. This is the last chance to get these books. I'm not going to bring them anymore. And if you get them after today, they'll be more expensive. They might have a few copies in the bookstore, but 4 books for 1,200 rupees and 2 books for 600 rupees. But I only have 6 of the 4 books left. That's it. So anybody who wants them, please come up. Thank you.
Also, Mataji is
What?
going to take classes on these books in March, beginning from March. So if anybody is interested, Mataji will tell how to, give
Yeah,
your
we'll have
names and all.
a reading group, a men's reading group and a ladies'
It will be
reading
online, but it will be like Mataji will be in US, we will be in India. So time will be maybe night 7:30 or morning, early morning. So Mataji will tell how we can give our names. If somebody is interested to read these books and understand with Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.